Hello, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon or evening, wherever you are watching this, because we actually do have viewers, oddly enough, all over the world. Who would have thought that, right? Hi, my name is Adam Sternberg. I'm with CorporatePhotographers.com, and we're doing the first of our weekly broadcasts today on Tuesday and Wednesdays, or when we're always doing them. And so we have something, kind of an interesting guest today. Actually, I'm going to talk about her in just a minute. She's just a really, really cool guest, and I think everybody's going to have a lot of fun talking to her and learning from her too. Before we get started into our interview, just a couple quick things I wanted to mention here. First thing is, if everybody could do us a big, big favor. Oop, I'm going to have to, as I'm doing this here, I have to bring something else in here. Sorry, got to do a share screen. Forgot to do a little homework on this before we started. I apologize. There we go. So cool. So if everybody can, as we're still working on getting our YouTube channel set up, if you're watching this on YouTube or if you're on Facebook and would like to subscribe and get notifications on our upcoming broadcasts, all you have to do is go to our website at CorporatePhotographers.com, and you're going to click on that little YouTube button right at the very top of the homepage. That gets you over to our YouTube channel right here. You can see all of our past videos. You can even see our live streaming right there. And make sure you click the subscribe button and the notification bell. That will give you notifications as all of our broadcasts are coming through. So you'll actually get an email, and you can see whenever we're doing all of our different interviews and different broadcast trainings, all that kind of fun stuff. And I wanted to mention a few of our other things here too. The first is our sponsor for this show is Sustain Vegas. They've been a huge help to us, getting us with some of the networking equipment that we do. For those of you who aren't familiar, Sustain Vegas, they provide free electronic recycling to residents of Las Vegas as an alternative to the landfill. So instead of you throwing out your old electronics, your iPads, your computers, your hard drives, all of that, they actually specialize in recycling all of that so it doesn't get and damage the environment. It's free. They do free local pickup. So if you have anything, they'll actually come to you to get it. They do free data erasure. They give you full reporting on all of that. And they're a really great company, very, very nice people. And, definitely something, if you have anything as far as electronics in your home or office and you need to get rid of it, they're the people you want to contact. And you can do so by going to www.sustainvegas.com. So that is that's a little bit about our sponsor. So the first person I want to talk to, or for the person we're going to talk to today, I'm going to introduce her, is she's a very good friend of mine. I was just occurred to me, there was a photo I needed to dig up of us, and I regretfully did not do it. Our guest today is a dear friend of mine, and she's somebody that actually works with us. We're going to have her name on our website, actually. And that is, I'm clicking on the wrong stuff again. There we go. And that is our dear friend, Adrienne Angelo. I'm going to show you a picture of her and at work here. There's Adrienne right there. And so Adrienne is one of the photographers that works for us. And, I will say, even probably more so than myself, when any one of our clients works with her, she's the most requested person to have her come back. Adrienne is like a fan favorite of every one of our clients. Not only is she a great photographer and extraordinarily talented, but she has a wonderful radiant energy about her that everybody absolutely loves to work with her. So it's kind of a real treat to have her on our broadcast today. I'm going to introduce her right now, and that is Adrienne Angelo. I'm going to click right over here. Say hi to everybody, Adrienne.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody, right? I guess it's the old joke of, yeah. So anyways, Adrienne's been working with us for a number of years. Adrienne and I have actually, the way we met was Adrienne runs a portrait studio in Vegas. And I'll have you tell everybody a little bit about that in a second. But she runs a portrait studio. She owns her own studio. It's this beautiful place. And I used to go and rent it all the time. And so one of the very first shoots I ever did was with a Lady Gaga impersonator. And so this woman asked me, she worked with one of the shows in Vegas. She asked me, she's like, listen, we just did this shoot. No, not Lady Gaga, Britney Spears. I'm sorry, it's a Britney Spears impersonator. And she said, Britney just did this photo shoot with a boa constrictor, and I wanted to recreate that for marketing purposes for my show. And is there a way we could do that? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So, she was telling me she's going to bring a snake in. What I didn't realize, it was like an 11-foot, this monstrous, gigantic albino boa constrictor. And so I contacted, I didn't know about this until like the day before the shoot. So I contacted Adrienne. We had never actually met. And so I said, hey, listen, I got a little bit of a hiccup here. And she's like, what's up? And I said, well, we're bringing a snake into the studio. Is that a problem? She's like, Yeah, sure, whatever. So Adrienne has been such a great sport with all of my crazy whims and bizarre shoots we've done. Things for a medical. We did things for a marijuana magazine once. So we had models in the studio with bongs, and we weren't using actual marijuana. We were using dry ice in the bongs to create that smoke effect. So we had buckets of ice and water, and and just oh my gosh, it was just so. Every time I'd come over to call Adrienne, I said I need to rent your studio. I could just hear her cringing on the other end of the phone because she knows there's going to be like some ridiculous thing coming in. So yeah, so I'm going to enjoy. So Adrienne, thanks for joining us today. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How do where are you from? How long you been in Vegas? What got you into photography? What makes you tick?
So back in '92, I decided I was going to move to Vegas after vacationing here for 4 years. I came here and worked in the casino for a while. I met a lady that did wedding photography. So
what'd you do in the casino?
A slot attendant. So we filmed.
I had to get that out of you. It's just kind of funny. Yeah.
Yeah. So we used to carry, they were like either 20, 21, or 22 pound bags, depending on if they were nickels, quarters, dollars. Mm-hmm. So just constantly putting that up on your shoulders, which has probably contributed to my bad neck over the years. But that's when we would walk around and fill the machines up. So I worked in the casino for about 8 years before I got into photography. And when I was in the casino, I met a lady that did wedding photography. And I thought, I can do that. It just clicked. I can do this. I can work once a week on Saturday and have 6 days.
Sure, why not?
So I seriously bothered this lady until she hired me. And she hired me on as more of an assistant, third camera, and I didn't know how to shoot.
How long ago was this?
2005.
Wow.
And it was quite a ride. We were she was on the list at Lake Las Vegas at all of those properties. So we were on the 2 yachts, we were in the chapel, we were at all the properties. So we had plenty of work before 2008. So from 2005 to 2008, we were staying busy and we were shooting weddings Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So that's kind of what got me into it. So I trained with her until I was good enough to go on my own, and I shot weddings for about 5 years.
And when did you open? Now you have an actual studio in town. When did you open that up?
The one downtown, it's been over 8 years now. And before that, we had a executive suite where we would meet with people, do the consultations and sales appointments at an executive suite for 3 years before that. I just decided when I was in a little executive suite that I needed more room. So we rented a second executive suite in the same building, started promoting children's shoots, headshots, did it for a month. And I said, I need more space. So I wanted to expand. I couldn't expand there very easily because the rooms were so small. So I just started looking for a space, and I found the studio downtown. And after the first year of being downtown, we expanded to the second suite, put a hole in the wall, and that's our office side. And we have our studio and sales room and makeup area side.
One of the things I love about what you do is, I don't shoot weddings by choice, and I used to years ago, but it's just, it's kind of a forte, right? So, and it's definitely a specialty in photography. A lot of people, it's interesting when I tell people I'm a photographer, the first thing they always ask me is, oh, so you shoot weddings? And I'm like, no, I don't, but I have a lot of respect for people that do. And, it's a specialty. And it, one of the things I love about what you do is, and I've told you this many times, is that it is a specialty in a sense of it's not just the photography end of it, but there's an entire business end of it that a lot of people are not necessarily aware of. And, I know you have a very intimate knowledge of everything from setting up, for creating really awesome photo albums and the print side of it, and going into, doing the consults with people and the pre-shoot consultation. And I know you do more than weddings. You shoot, I know, senior portraits and whatnot. And obviously you shoot corporate stuff. We'll get into that in a minute. But, I know that there's a lot more into the wedding side of what you do. And that's something I've always found kind of interesting is, the learning curve into getting into that is just, it's something I've never experienced, but I know a lot of people have like you. And so it's kind of an interesting thing to see how people operate in that environment. And I know you have a lot of your studio set up to kind of accommodate that. So it's kind of a cool thing. And that's, one of the reasons I always like going down to your studio is it looks really nice and professional. So yeah.
Yeah. And as of right now, I'm not photographing weddings. I think my last wedding was back in 2016. I had 2 small weddings. And then I had friends of mine get married. And I also told them that you are going to be the last wedding.
Oh, that's cool.
You're it. I've decided to move more corporate, more headshot, and go that direction. So now I just refer out. And it's funny to say people assume you're a wedding photographer when you say I'm a photographer. Just yesterday, I was down at the studio just sorting through some things and cleaning and throwing out some things. And I had my dog with me. So we go out and take a little walk in the arts district, and I see a lady with 3 Frenchies. And we just started chatting, and she says, "Oh, what's your studio name?" She goes, "Oh, well, my son's going to get married. I'll call you soon." And
it's funny, right?
I can refer you.
It's like, won't be me, but I know a lot of other people I can. Yeah, no, I mean, that's cool. But it's interesting how that's just kind of like the automatic default. And, I know, having worked as a photographer for a long time myself, and I do a lot of video too, I meet a lot of interesting people. And, it's interesting how over the years I've learned there's so many specialties and subspecialties in photography that a lot of people are not aware of. We've met people that are, commercial photographers, but the only thing they might shoot are, specialty machining equipment or parts for aeronautical part components,
exactly.
or weird things like that. So it's interesting to see how people create specialties. And then, a lot of times there's culinary photographers, food photographers. I do a lot of that myself, but there's a lot of specialties even in that. I know people that only shoot sushi, but they're really good at staging it. And, you think that's kind of, well, that's such a small niche, but, to shoot something like sushi, for example, or any type of food photography, you've got to have a lot of props and equipment that are not normally native to the environment you're shooting in. So restaurants may have beautiful dishes and plateware and even chopsticks and things, but they may not have things that are designed for taking photos. And so a lot of times, I've run into a lot of culinary photographers where, and my wife jokes, I've got all kinds of plates and pieces of slate and stone and wood and everything for taking food photos out in the garage, because you needed stage stuff. So it's kind of, funny how you find these interesting little niches. I got to put this up on the screen. I got to torch you a little bit here. So this is Adrienne. Which expo was this at? I think it was probably the licensing expo, wasn't it?
Gaming.
Oh, is that the gaming expo? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, got it. Yeah.
I was photographing. I didn't photograph this booth. This is when I was leaving the booth I was shooting, which was roulette tables, blackjack tables. So I was with them for a couple of hours, and I couldn't resist this one.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, all the weird things we see at these shows. And, I want to point out, I want to, definitely want to point out all the gear we walk around with. I know you walk around with a ton, right?
Exactly.
Holy cow, that just grates on your back. So this is probably G2E, I would imagine. Is that probably the conference, the convention?
I believe it was.
Yeah. G2E is an interesting.
They run together.
Yeah, I know they all bleed together at some point. Yeah, we shoot every year at G2E. We, and it's interesting. Some of the clients we all wind up getting. We shoot at G2E, and one of the clients that we shoot for there is they make. Gosh, it's such an odd. All the weird specialties we run into. They make the LED cabinets that go on the sides of slot machine banks. That's pretty much all their specialty is. Mm-hmm. Is they just make the LED, lit displays that go on the sides of a bank of slot machines. But that's a big industry, and who would have thought it, right? But there's a lot of money in that, I guess. And so we go around G2E and take photos of all of their cabinets being used by all the different slot machine companies. So it's kind of a weird thing. We spend hours and hours doing this, and then we shoot video of interviews from different executives that use their cabinets and things like this. So it's interesting, some of the weird stuff you see. I love the Pac-Man though. That's extra special. We shoot at the licensing expo, which is another weird one. And you see every mascot you can even possibly imagine there. I mean, if it's made out of foam and fuzzy something and walks around, it's there. So yeah, we always
saw a clitoris.
What's that?
I saw a soft walking around uterus at a show. It was a medical convention. Don't spit out your coffee.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
I'm sure I have it somewhere. I will send it to you when I find it.
Oh, that's just special. All right. Yeah, I've done, I've palled around with Tony the Tiger for an hour or so, and, just all the weird things that we see. So what got you into doing, like more corporate stuff, trade shows, expos? What got you into doing that?
Well, the company I was photographing the weddings with occasionally would get a corporate job, and I didn't know how to shoot corporate. I just followed their lead and trained, and I figured this is just something else to do, just something that's not always the same thing. Mm-hmm. So I just started, I think it was a medical convention was my first corporate over at the Ritz-Carlton at Lake Las Vegas.
Okay. When the way we wound up kind of, wind up working with you. So, Adam Shane, who's the co-owner of our company, we started our business, right around a little over 5 years ago. And it was originally Las Vegas Corporate Photographers. We're kind of rebranding the company into CorporatePhotographers.com now. We acquired that domain name recently. And so we're in the process of redoing the website. Knock on wood, we'll have it completely wrapped up this week. And so it was mostly for a long time just Adam and I shooting, corporate events. And we decided we want to specialize in that. And we both had a background in it, but we wanted to establish a very unique company doing this. And so as we started growing, we needed more photographers. And so we were talking about this quite a bit. And I remember talking with Adam, and he's like, well, who can we really bring in? We had a few people that we were trying out that didn't really work out that great. And some people did. And I said, you know what? I know this woman, Adrienne. She's awesome. I've worked with her in the past. And let's bring her in and give her a shot. And I think we kind of threw you the lines. I think it was on a large shoot we did, which was not supposed to be a large shoot, but turned out to be a really large shoot. And you did an amazing job. And so ever since then, it's like, we love bringing you into all kinds of projects like this.
Yeah, I love all the different projects. Just the more variety, the better.
Yeah, well, and that's one of the reasons I enjoy working in corporate photography. I mean, when I say that, oh yeah, I'm a corporate photographer, people are like, oh my God, it's so boring. You're just shooting a speaker on stage, and what's exciting about that?
Or what's that?
Yeah, and holy cow, it's so not true. I would say, and I've been in photography and videography for over 20 years, and I would say doing the corporate stuff, I find more entertaining than anything else I've ever done. It's just always fascinating. Every time we shoot a new corporate party or a new event, the things we see are just nothing short of, amazing. What people are willing to spend money on for their corporate events whether it's marketing to, establish or get new customers, or just doing internal events for their own employees. We see the most fascinating things. We'll probably have to do a broadcast just on that. But holy cow, we see some of the craziest stuff. We just, I think I was talking on one of the past webinars. We just did a shoot for Toyota, and it was at the Mandalay Bay, and it was for, I would say under 1,000 people, but it was every single group. They brought people in small groups into the main ballroom at the Mandalay Bay, and every single group that went in was greeted by their own personal marching band. And I'm like, this is just crazy. The stuff we see is just nothing short of amazing. And everything from technology to certain industries and the weird quirky things we see in certain industries. We did a shoot one time where we had to get security background clearances. We had to actually go through an FBI background check to go shoot this one event. And then when we were there, all they were doing, it was a cybersecurity event. We didn't really think it was going to be that interesting, but the topics that we hear them talking about were amazing. And, at the end of the day, I think we wanted to go crawl, into like a hole somewhere because it was just so disturbing, all the stuff we were learning. But you've worked on trade show floors, a lot over the last few years. I know you've kind of been doing this a lot. And so, what are some of the things you've had to do for clients? What are some interesting things that you've run into, things you've seen?
Interesting. I don't know if there's anything that's super interesting besides the show where they bring in all that big machinery, all the construction equipment.
Oh, okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like 2 stories high. That's pretty cool.
I'm like a big kid at these things. It's like, we go to NAB. We actually work for the National Association of Broadcasters. We shoot all their marketing photos. And, it's one of the things I always find funny is that, like, you could walk around that show floor and shop for satellites. It's like, I find that stuff just amazing. The weird little quirky things you see. Like you mentioned, you go to the construction shows and you can see, things you could stand right next to and, interact with, multi-million-dollar pieces of equipment that pump concrete. I find a lot of that stuff interesting. We at NAB, another one was we did, I was doing a shoot for a company that mounted cameras to helicopters. And so they were like, hey, you want to go for a ride? And of course, my answer was yes. And so, next thing you know, I'm flying over Las Vegas, taking pictures of a helicopter that shoots video.
That
that's all it was
reminds
meant
me.
for.
I did shoot something where I got to go out to the Grand Canyon with some of the top salespeople from a particular company. And we took them out into the Grand Canyon. We landed, had lunch, and came back. So that was pretty cool.
And that was it, right?
Yeah, that was nice. I have not done
the
that.
whole time you're sitting there going, my clock's still running. It's like whether I'm flying or not. Yeah.
Exactly. What about interesting people that you've met? Who's your favorite person you met?
We meet a lot of interesting people. I would say, a lot of them are not necessarily like celebrities. We shoot a lot of celebrities, and I've met a lot of them that were absolutely changed my opinion on a lot of people. I remember we did a shoot a couple years ago where I was working with Sharon Stone for half a day. And everybody had warned me like, oh my gosh, Sharon's such a prima donna and she's so hard to work with and you're going to have a nightmare and, best of luck to you. It's going to suck. And then I met her and she was the most wonderful, pleasant, humble person. So completely changed my opinion on that. We just did a shoot not long ago for a show called, what was it? It was NADA. It was an Automotive Dealer Association conference. And so they're an interesting show. So they do Vegas one year, some other city, one year, Vegas one year. So they alternate back and forth. And we've been working with them for a number of years now. So they fly us out to their remote events too. And it's several thousand people. The last one we just did, one of their keynote speakers was Howie Long from the NFL. And just the nicest guy. I mean, absolutely just the most pleasant person. We've also worked with some celebrities that were not so great. I don't even want to name names because I don't want to get people mad at me.
Yeah, me either.
But, yeah, right. So, but we've had a couple bad experiences too. But, I think a lot of it is we meet a lot of people from a lot of very big companies that are very humble, very nice, and not like this egotistical, Scrooge kind of money hungry kind of people.
Exactly.
We work with Expedia a lot. They're one of our larger clients, and we've been working with them for years. They're a wonderful company to work with. And so we work with a lot of their senior executives, the CEO, president, so forth, and just the nicest people. I mean, really, truly, just, I'm not saying this because they're a client. They're just wonderful people to work with and a real pleasure. So, we run into that a lot. I'd say, overall, the positive experiences we have very much eclipse the negative ones. There's always going to be negative ones. We did a shoot one time for an event management company where they gave us a shot list of things to do, and then we met with the actual client at the day of their shoot, and their shot list completely contradicted everything that we were given originally. And so we're like, well, because everything's everything's arguing with each other, let's get everybody in a room and iron this out. And the event manager and the representative from the company were standing into a room in a screaming match with each other, arguing about photos that we were going to, and we're just standing there watching all of this. And we're like, guys, we could actually do both. It's not that big a deal. Digital's pretty cheap. So it was like, oh yeah, I guess you can. And then everybody mellowed out and it was fine. But we've had weird things like that. But yeah, generally, our experience is always, really good. But I mean, you have, I know, I mean, we all have the weird horror stories, but what are some other fun ones? I mean, you've said, I know you've told me you've had some fun and even weird things on shooting weddings before. So, I mean, what's a memorable thing for you?
Well, I won't say where we were, but a very, very nice property, getting ready to go out and shoot a wedding. And we heard that the mom of the bride just told dad of the bride that she didn't want to be with him anymore.
Ooh, at their daughter's
right before the daughter's wedding.
Wow. Oh man.
And she wanted her girlfriend in the processional to walk down the aisle.
Are you serious, really?
I'm serious. And I was not the lead photographer, so I just followed whatever the lead told me to do. And it was just the most uncomfortable thing to know that this happened. And I really felt horrible for the dad, because I go and I photograph the guy's side, the groom getting ready, all the guys. Mm-hmm. And dad of the bride was with them. And he was just kind of sitting there a lot down. And I just felt really bad for him. So as for memorable, that was probably the most memorable thing at a wedding that was out of the norm.
That's a little out of the norm. Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, it was.
Holy
That
moly.
was bad. I've never experienced that before.
I was in a wedding party at a wedding once where I'm trying to remember this. It was the stepmother of the groom got into a fight with the bride at the wedding, and they actually got in a fist fight. And the stepmom got drunk. They had an 86er from the wedding. And then as they're kind of shoving her into the car as they're leaving, the bride walks out in her $5,000 wedding gown and punches the stepmom in the face, broke the woman's nose, and the bride broke her knuckle. So, and of course the whole wedding ground to a complete halt. The bride's got blood on her wedding gown. And so, they kind of this was after the ceremony, mind you. And so they kind of did a really quick cake cutting and let's get this over with kind of thing. And, there were photos of the bride, I remember, because they were going on their honeymoon the next morning. So she had to go to the hospital to get her hand wrapped up in her wedding gown. If you can imagine this, right? And I remember thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I cannot imagine what the photographer is going through on this thing, because it's like, holy moly. And I will never forget having this conversation with the photographer, because at some point I was introduced to them. And I think what happened was she had asked me if I would shoot it. And I said, you know what, I just don't like being a photographer at friends' weddings. I just don't. And if I remember right, I think I knew the photographer. And so she was coming up to me and she's like, I don't know what to do because the wedding has stopped and my time is up. I'm like, yeah, I don't know, man. This is definitely a first. Holy cow, how do you deal with those kind of things? But yeah, wow, that's heavy stuff though. Yeah. Talk about timing, right? I
can tell you one of the funny ones. It
Yeah.
was cute. The best man was pulling the ring out when they were asked to present the rings, and he set it up. He had like 20 poker chips in his pocket that he let fall out, ring. So that was cute.
That's pretty funny. I think one of the weirdest memories I have from when I shot weddings was I was hired to shoot I think it was a Vietnamese wedding. And they never told me that part of the wedding procession is a giant stuffed pig. And so they're like, oh yeah, we need to get photos of the pig. And I'm like, the what? And they show me this thing. And it was like, we're talking a full pig on a giant platter with the apple in its mouth, the whole thing. And I'm like, holy cow, and that was the first thing into the wedding procession was this pig.
I've seen it at the wedding, but not in the procession.
Yeah, that was a little odd. Yeah, that definitely was a strange one, it
was very important to them.
Well, I get it. It's all good, right? I mean, whatever's, and that's the thing you got to realize is that every event that you do is, important to whatever it is that they're having this. And this could be true whether it's a wedding, this could be true whether it's a corporate event, doesn't matter. And you have to understand that, we may still look at this stuff and go, God, that's really weird. But to them, it's really, really important. And it may even be something as simple as like a corporate party, where people are just having cocktails and mingling and, okay, I've shot a million of these. But to that client, it's important because maybe they're trying to wine and dine new clients. Maybe it's something to, as an incentive booster for their staff, and so all of these things you have to take into context is that, no matter what environment we're working in, to somebody, whatever it is, it's important. And so we have, I always like to kind of keep that perspective a little bit that, sometimes we may kind of raise an eyebrow at some things, but, to somebody, this is an important thing. So, we always kind of have to keep that in mind. Any kind of trade show, stories you've ever had of anything going awry or shooting anything that was interesting? What was it like going on your first trade show shoot? So here you are shooting weddings and doing stuff like that. So how was it like transitioning into that? Find like that environment kind of different or weird or anything like that?
Yeah, I almost didn't know what to shoot exactly because I'm used to shooting people drinking and being happy and dancing, and it was just totally different. Just photographing banners that led into a room, just getting interesting angles on that for the client. They're just not shooting their signage straight on, doing something a little interesting with the hallway and the lighting that's in the hallway to make it look just a little more creative than just a sign. But then you start to get the hang of it and what's important to that client. And it might be their first event. They might not even know what they want. So getting somebody experienced to even give suggestions they love suggestions. So if I can provide them with something they haven't thought of and do a little bit extra for them, that's what I do try to do for them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, one of the things that we tend to do is, we don't want to edge too much on the highly creative side, but at the same time, it's like, a lot of times we're brought in because some photographer from their previous events didn't really do the job that they were kind of hoping to. They were getting either the quality was low or they weren't, on the technical level. And part of the challenge that we have, and one of the reasons, we're always kind of talking about settings and how cameras should be set for certain rooms. We do calibration for every room we shoot in, because part of the issue we run into is that, some of the hotels that we work in, like, for example, like the Bellagio or the Venetian, the ballrooms are beautiful. You go in and they've got these gorgeous chandeliers in the room and wall sconces and this gorgeous wallpaper and the casino carpeting, which, is kind of funny always. But the problem we run into in especially those two properties, is everything is yellow, 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 or orange, 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 orange. And so, you walk into these rooms and the color palettes are just, while they're very pretty, are horrible for photography. And so, a lot of times we have to work on getting camera settings dialed in and post-processing, because, the environments we shoot in are kind of awkward. And I think that's, for a lot of people getting into corporate photography, that's kind of the hard transition to make, is dealing with the really bad lighting conditions, the really bad or awkward lighting conditions. Or shooting in places where a lot of times they don't think they're going to be shooting it, outside of poolsides at a corporate party, or shooting on an expo floor where the lighting is really bizarre, or dealing with people walking around behind things and stuff like that. So, a lot of times it's a totally unique environment. Throws people off a lot of times when they get into it.
There is one venue that I shoot in, and it's very dark, and they hired me because it is a very dark venue. And they're like, bring a lot of lights because we have a very dark venue. I didn't bring a lot of lights. I kind of looked at what they already had. I went in and looked around. I brought them just in case, but I didn't need them because we know how to use our settings and light and bring it in other ways that they don't know how to. So I work there quite often because they love everything that I give to them, and I make their venue look a little bit more lit than it actually is for the photos. It's great for the clients that are there and they're mingling and the events that are happening, the low light, but in the pictures, they do want to see it a little bit more clear than what it actually is.
Sure. We switched out our camera gear years ago. We were shooting with pretty good gear for a long time. And the other Adam Shane, the other co-owner of the company, we'll have a little conversation about that with him on one of these broadcasts. But he called me up and we're all, and I know you are, we're all Nikon people. Adam called me up one time and he said, hey, listen, I'm really thinking on investing into the Nikon D5 just came out. I just got a notice that we can get an early order on these things. It's really expensive. It's like $7,000. I think it was like 6,500, right around 7,000. And it's a lot of money, but I think I'm going to pull the trigger and get this thing. He's like, I think this is going to make a big difference because of the quality that we can deliver in these really bad environments. I think it's going to make a difference. And so I said, well, I've been thinking about it's a lot of money to kind of, plunk down on a camera, because we always use backup gear and everything, And so I said, well, if you're going to buy one, let me know how it goes. If you think it's really worth it, I'll look into it. And he's like, okay. So he wound up buying it. He did one corporate shoot and he calls me up and he goes, it's a true story. He calls me up and he says, this is the biggest game changer for our business because we can do so much more now than we could before. It doesn't make us better photographers. It just allows us to do more in really bad environments. He's like, I'm going to loan you this camera. I want you to take a shoot with it. See what see if you like it. And, I want your opinion on it. Maybe I'm just kind of, still on a buzz because I spent $7,000 on a camera, And I said, yeah, no, that's cool. So we had a shoot coming up that same week. I borrowed his camera and, of course he swore that, hey, you break it, you bought it. And of course, yeah. So I go out and I shoot. And it's a true story. I went and shot one event. I had a full day shoot with this camera. And I came home before I even had a chance to call him. I was online ordering it. And so it's true story. I bought this camera, like I'm driving home going, I need to get home and buy this camera. So, a lot of what we do is we tend to like to shoot with really high-end gear, not because it makes us better at what we do. It doesn't make us a better photographer. It makes us deliver a better product. And so, a lot of times people either don't know how to get their settings right, or they don't have the gear necessary to get the really, really high-end photos. And so because we tend to target more of a higher-end clientele, we have to deliver better. And so, that comes from having the right people on our team, but it also comes with having good equipment. All of that kind of falls into the same category, And so, but more importantly than anything, it's having the right people knowing what to do with that gear. And that's more important than anything. Anybody
Feel
can buy
free
it.
to order one for me.
What's that?
Feel free to order one for me.
Done. Yeah. They are nifty. I'll tell you that.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, they are nifty. But, but more than anything though, it's doing what we do. A lot of people don't really understand that, doing what we do is more than just what the camera can do. It's dealing with, it's like wedding people. I've noticed wedding photographers, they're really good at dealing with the bride, dealing with the groom, the mom, the bridezillas, all of that. Again, it's great. We deal with corporate people that are under a lot of stress, that are under, getting tugged 500 directions at the time of their event. And so we have to kind of deal in that environment too. And, one of the reasons that we are take a lot of pride in the people that we like to work with is because a lot of people are really good at interacting and networking with people and just, being really professional on game day when it's really stressful for the client, I'm sure you've seen this.
That's true. It's great to hear from that client that's being pulled in so many different directions. Thank you for doing such a good job, even though she hasn't seen the photos yet.
Right.
But
yeah.
I did not have to worry about what you were doing. I saw that you were doing everything that was asked of you. I didn't have to follow you around. You did a great job. Thanks. I did not have to worry about you. So that's always good to hear. Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of what our job is stress relief for our clients. It really, especially I'm sure you've noticed when we do longer shoots that are 3, 4, 5 days or whatever, you notice that the demeanor of the people that we're interacting with on our client's behalf on day one is a lot different on day 3, right? Once everything is kind of calmed down and everybody's gone to their classes and the keynotes are over and the award ceremony is done, and now they're at their corporate party on the 3rd night and they've, had 7 or 8 drinks. Their attitude changes a lot, and it's just becomes from one of stress to one of I'm just so glad it's over and it went off without a hitch. So a lot of times we're kind of like that cog in the wheel that helps make a lot of our clients have less stress during it, and of course then they see the results on it a week or 2 later when we start delivering all the media. That's when we start to get the other level of feedback. So I remember we did a shoot one time. Well, let me ask you this: have you ever had any heart attack or near oh my gosh, I can't believe this is gonna, this catastrophe is happening in front of me, or any weird things like that on a shoot where you just, had to kind of recompose a little bit? Or no, I was shooting at I think it was at the House of Blues though. And I was leaning over to take a shot of, it was like Huey Lewis that was performing for this corporate group of 500 people. And my lens cap came off. I had the little leash on the cap.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wide lens. And my lens cap fell 2 stories down. I was just with the lens, but it gave me that little heart attack moment.
Gosh, I wish some of ours were just that mild. You were on one of our shoots where I collected. We did it was a multi photographer shoot. You were on this shoot, and we had, I think it was myself. There was about 4 or 5 of us shooting. And at the end of the event, we had to dump the photos and get them over to the client within, I think it was that night or the next morning. And it was one of our larger clients. I collected everybody's cards, and I usually just take your card, right? Do you remember this?
I remember this.
And so I put them in a card case. I don't have one here, but I put them in a card case and put it in my pocket, took it with me. Everything's good. I get home. It's 11 o'clock at night, and I had to go dump the photos, get them a couple real quick. And I get out of my car and I couldn't find it anywhere. And I knew I put it in my pocket, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't find these anywhere. And I wake my wife up, who had to get up for work at 4 o'clock in the morning. It's 11:30 at night. And I'm like, you need to help me look for this thing. I'm going to panic. And we tore my car apart. I'm like, how could this have gotten out of my possession, right? I call the hotel. We're calling security, lost and found. I go down to the hotel at 1 o'clock in the morning. We're walking. This is at the Aria. We're walking back and forth from the parking garage to the convention center. I've got security guards roaming everywhere looking for this thing. And it was just, it's a little case about this size, the size of a wallet. And we're turning the hotel apart, and we can't find this thing. And it was oh my gosh. So I had to email the client and say, listen, we've got some bad news. This is, we may have lost all of the photos from this shoot. And needless to say, they were kind of upset about it. Long story short, it turns out what had happened was, and the security got it on camera. They retrieved the case for me the next morning. And what had happened was some pickpockets got it out of my pocket in the elevator as I was going to my car and stole it. They got him on camera, leaving the area. They opened it up, realized there was no money in there, and they just chucked it out near a garbage can, and a security guard found it near a garbage can on the other side of the hotel that next morning. They called me up. They said, we found your case. And I was like, holy cow. And, raced down there at like 8:00 in the morning, got the case, came back, edited the photos, got them to the client the next morning. And they were just like, holy cow. I mean, but yeah, talk about stress.
Remember I said
really well. Yeah.
But I said, is there a chance you got pickpocketed? And you're like, no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
And then I said, go down there and check all the garbage cans, because that's what pickpockets will do.
Yeah. Well, and it turns out Adam Shane's wife, Ty, she's a makeup artist, and she co-owns a large company for that here in Vegas. And it turns out she was at the property a few days earlier on an unrelated shoot, and she was pickpocketed too by the exact same people at the exact same location. And so once security figured this all out and connected the dots, yeah, it was a really crazy thing. I don't know whatever happened out of that, but holy cow, what a stressful thing, So if the worst thing that's ever happened to you was dropping a lens cap, man, I bow to you, because it's like, holy cow, that's kind of a little bit different than losing all your clients' photos.
Well, the very first thing I did after you called me is I went in, I put a second card in the second card slot, and I set the camera up for a raw JPEG copy to a raw JPEG copy. I know some photographers do raw on one card, JPEG on another.
Yep, we shoot redundant and everything, because cards go bad. So but
I never did that before.
Cards and put them in a case, and you lose the whole case. So now we have a different, But some of the most expensive lessons are the best lessons are the most expensive ones, and so we learned the hard way. Okay, don't do that again. Make sure this whatever, when we're collecting cards, have a more secure place to put them, or we dump them on site. Even though it's late, we might put them into a laptop before we take them home, so we have a duplicate of everything. There's systems that we now have in place to prevent a problem like that from happening. But you learn by experience sometimes, right? Those expensive lessons.
We used to have only one card slot in the camera back in the day.
Right.
And so I was in a very, very good habit of, you go straight home. If you stop at the store, you take your camera bag with your media with you in the store. If you have to stop and grab a drink, because when we used to work out at Lake Las Vegas in the summer, it was very hot, and we would stop at that little store on the way home.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember one time I was shooting something, and this is when we only had one card slot. I had my little card holder, and it was meant to go on your belt. And I was leaving a shoot, but we had concert tickets. And I did not have time to download them. And it was somebody's wedding. I literally taped it to my body. Went to the concert because of that.
That's great.
About losing somebody's coverage.
Yeah, because if you do, you basically ruin their entire. I mean, it's a major life event, right? So you have to be able. I had times where I've gone out. I did a shoot one time, and I met some friends for dinner after the shoot, and I come. It was like at a restaurant, not in a hotel or anything, and I come rolling in with my big heavy camera, my big Pelican hard shell camera case, and they're looking at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, I'm not leaving $20,000 in camera equipment and all the photos from that shoot in my car. I've heard so many horror stories of photographers, leaving all their gear in a car, and I just got to dart into a store just for a minute, and they come back and their vehicle's completely, window smashed, all their equipment stolen. And, gosh, I can't even imagine what I would do if that happened, so it's like, I don't want to have to make that insurance claim.
They probably have a branded vehicle too.
Well, and that's another thing. I've heard many stories of that too. I thought of that once, actually. I remember when I first got into doing this professionally, I remember thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to do a wrap on the car, Adam photography, whatever. And then I thought that was an idea. And then somebody talked me out of it and said, you're advertising for crooks. Because as soon as you put video, because all they're going to do is think, there's a bunch of expensive stuff in that vehicle. And they're probably right. So yeah, it's like, oh yeah, that's a real bad move. Yeah, I think I see once in a while I'll see a vehicle riding around town with professional videographers on it, and I just sit and cringe. I'm like, yeah, you're begging for a break-in.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that work in trade industries that are like plumbers, electricians, things like that, and they've all told me like, oh yeah, vehicle break-ins are so common. They actually wind up. A lot of time on work vans and stuff, they put actual padlocks on the back doors and stuff because these doors are so easy to break into and stuff. Yeah, it's crazy. So yeah, why would you want to run around with all your camera gear, right? So yeah, we have a couple people that have left some comments here. This is kind of cool. I'm going to post this one. I guess you have a fan here. And by the way, if anybody's watching this, we're going to wrap up this broadcast pretty soon. If anybody has any questions for Adrienne I know. I love our conversations. We could talk all day. If anybody has any questions for Adrienne about photography, camera stuff, anything like that, feel free to ask if you're watching this. I'm going to put this on the screen real quick. Debbie over here says she's your biggest fan here. So so she posted this, I guess, on Facebook. So Adrienne also makes private events fabulous. That's cool. So awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Debbie. That's really kind of neat. See, you have fans out there, Adrienne.
Well, I don't think her daughter was happy the next day.
What happened?
Well, we were at the pool at Planet Hollywood, and let's just say she wasn't feeling so well. And
okay.
and Debbie had someone come over with shots.
All right. Yeah, I can see where that's going. Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully we're going to photograph her daughter again next year.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
21. Yeah.
Wow. On this past Thursday, we interviewed Jennifer Autry, who is a professional trade show model and ex-showgirl, and she does all kinds of modeling projects. But one of the things I just was thinking about, I forgot to ask her about when we did the interview, and I love teasing her about this, was she was on the TV show Rehab. I can't remember if it was on MTV or what network it was on, but she was on the show Rehab, which was broadcast at Rehab, the pool at the Hard Rock. And I remember I was working on editing some photos and how I found this out, because it's not my kind of show. And I'm sitting there and I had my TV on in my office, and it was just background noise. I wasn't even paying attention to it. And that show had come on. And so I'm sitting there working, and I hear this voice on the show, and I'm like, God, that sounds really familiar. And I look over, and it's Jennifer. And I'm like, okay, there's no way she would ever go to that pool. And I call her up as I'm watching the show. I call her up and I said, I'm watching Rehab right now and you're on it. She goes, it was the most embarrassing thing I ever did. I go, what happened? She goes, well, all the show's fake. All reality shows are fake. And so she goes, all the people that are on that show is like guests of the hotel and all this drama they create. She's like, the whole thing is fake. We're all from the same modeling agency. So she's like, they hired me to come basically be on the show and act like, I can't remember what scenario she was in. And it was kind of funny. And she's like, oh yeah, and I did this whole thing. And she said, I even had it written in my contract that I will not get wet for any reason. I will not go in that pool. Like, that's just the best. So what a great Vegas story, It's like, yeah, I'll do the show, but yeah, I'm not getting in that pool. I thought it was great. So yeah, so I can only, imagine that the things the lifeguards have to deal with at some of the pools in this town are a little out there.
I'm sure they've seen a lot.
Oh, that's so great. Well, anyways, listen, Adrienne, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you as always. Thanks for sharing some of your fun stories. And, like I said, I think you and I could probably have these conversations for hours, and a lot of times we do. So it was great. Thanks again for being on this. As we're just kind of starting to launch our broadcast here, it's great to have an actual photographer on to talk to. And we're going to be having some more interesting guests coming up soon. On Thursday, we're going to be talking to my friend Paul Fink, who is a public speaker and author. And he's just this amazingly knowledgeable, entrepreneurial, cool guy. And next week, we're going to have on my friend Patrick, who's a DJ here in Vegas, and all kinds of great stuff. So, Adrienne, again, thank you so much for being here. I'm sure it was a big hit having you. It seems like you got a lot of likes and thumbs up. And you're definitely one of our longer broadcasts. Like I said, we could talk forever. Thanks, everybody. And be sure to catch us again on Friday at noon. And give us a big like and subscribe on YouTube. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Adrienne, have an awesome day. We'll see you on Thursday.
Okay.
If I hit the end broadcast button. There we go.